Welcome to Caching Waves. This is an Elliott wave update for ICP. Now in a moment I'm going to get into the smaller time frames, but a quick recap out on the daily. Have this as a 5-wave impulse to the upside. Nice separation within our third, as well as 5 waves within our third. Our targets for our 5th wave are the length of wave 1, extended off of wave 4, targeting the 1-to-1 since wave 3 is extended. You can see we hit that ideal target, as well as our area we look for our wave 4. Take the beginning of wave 1 off of wave 2, extend that off the top of wave 1. We look for the top end of that channel for our 4th wave pivot, right between the 236 and the 50. We ended up hitting the 382. Now, this counts as a pretty clean impulse. So after that, we're looking for a 3-wave move. And we ended up getting a complex correction here. Now, areas we look for a wave 2 is between the 382 and the 786. Ideal area between the 50 and the 618. You can see we hit that 618 retracement of the entire 5-wave move, pretty much to the tick, right between the golden zone. So in this area, we're looking for a pivot to the upside to potentially continue the trend to the upside to make a larger wave 3, a larger version of this wave 3 of one lesser degree. Target for that, if that pivot holds, is all the way up at 149. It's the 1.618 extension of this entire wave 1 move off of the wave 2, if that pivot holds. Now it's hanging on by a thread, but I'll explain my expectations if we do fail here. Now, first of all, off the high, we had an ABC as our W wave, had an X wave as a triangle, and another ABC for our Y wave. You can also see we hit the 1-to-1 extension of this W off the X for our Y. That was at 641.9, right at that 618 retracement, which is pretty much the ideal area, hitting 2 of those targets. Now, we were expecting a pivot around between the 382 and the 786 of this move as a smaller degree wave 1 and 2. You can see we're almost invalidated. So this is getting quite worrisome. And if we do break this low here, my alternative, which I suggested previous, was that this ABC as a Y wave right here can also be counted as a 5-wave move, and this is a triangle for our 4th wave. Unfortunately, that was the scenario where both ways can be counted, but because we came to that 1-to-1 target in the 618, it made more sense, obviously, to have the bias to the upside. So I have some targets out here. If this is a 5-wave move as labeled, then we're looking for a C wave, a 1-to-1 extension of this A wave off the B to complete a Y wave. And this entire move becomes a double zigzag, ABCX, ABC. Now the 1-to-1 extension of the smaller A wave off the B wave is at $4.90. So if this ends up making a 5-wave move, right now I have this as a wave 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. We're still within a 4th wave of the 3rd, which may end up being a triangle. You can see we have a lot of triangles potentially in play. Seems to be a common theme here for ICP. So if this is our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 within our 3rd, looking for a 4th and a 5th wave down to potentially hit that 490 area and our Y wave complete, and we actually pivot to the upside. You can see that also holds above that 786 still, right between the 618 and the 786. So we'll see if we get that. That also comes to the top end of this wave 1 and 2 of the previous wave. So our W off our X, those targets are in yellow over here. We'd look for between the 1.236 and the 382 since the 1-to-1 was already tagged. So that's kind of the zone we're looking at. The 1.382 seems to be the most confluent zone currently. So if we fail here, this obviously becomes something more complex. It's WXY or even a ABC with an extended C wave. But it was a difficult count to begin with. If we remember previous, we didn't like it. It hit the minimum requirement for a fourth wave, but we didn't like the shape of it. So just keep in mind we might be making a triangle here and invalidate these levels as a 1-2. Okay, so the one we're hanging on by a thread by. In this scenario, we have a wave 1 and 2 complete. And this ended up being a, let me go down to the smaller time frame here. We're all the way down at the 15-minute. This was the area we didn't like. This wasn't the cleanest impulse right here, this WXY, and a very small wave 5. So, yeah, it's just so ugly, as you can see. Technically, still an impulse. It's not invalidated by any means, but the deepness of this is not good. You can see we had an ABC for W, X as a flat, ABC for our Y. Usually we want our Y wave to be, our W wave to be steeper than our Y. So we want this Y wave to actually take a little bit longer. Again, just guidelines, but you want to see the sharp move as the W or the A, B, and then a less steep move for the Y. So I'm getting a little bit concerned here. You can see we also passed through the 786 retracement of the wave 1 as labeled to the upside, ticked off the 887, which is not a good sign. So kind of the only bullish scenario I see still, even this was a very ugly diagonal. So the uglier things get, the less they follow guidelines, the more likely they are corrective. But I will still give this bullish scenario because it is technically valid. Until something invalidates, I am aware of it. And the way I would count this, if we make another low here, is this ends up being our B wave as a flat. 3, 3, diagonal for our 5. Looking for a micro 5-wave move down here. For a C wave, this becomes our A, B, C. Very long B wave. That target would come down to the 786 of this wave 1 at 657.4. That's about as far as I would give this entire scenario because you can see we're really pushing against guidelines on pretty much everything here. So what I would do in this situation, and the way I'm planning on playing it, is letting these 5-wave moves play out. And if I do get that and this becomes an ABC, I will wait for the break of this B, wait for this to come back, and trigger in above this B wave level. Like so. Stop will go at this low, or if the wave count has invalidation levels higher, I will take that as well. But that's how I would play that as an absolute last case scenario for the bulls. Now, don't get disgruntled by this. Like I've seen it play out that way several times. It's not invalid. Remember, if something's valid, you have to accept it as valid, right? But that's how I would play that out. I'm not going to pull targets for that right now, but you know we're obviously going for a third wave way, 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 way above. So that's how I would consider kind of our last chance on this wave. Now, I did it this way as a flat because this really does look like 5 waves down. So expecting this to be a zigzag. But if for whatever reason this is actually a flat W, we could have a W, X, and this is a zigzag for the Y, and the low is actually right here. You can see with all the overlap, it's a very difficult count. And this could technically be a 1, 2, 1, 2. And this is a diagonal. But yeah, I don't really like it. I prefer this move down here. Not enough to just take an entry, right? So that's what I'm looking for the upside. I prefer this move, and I'll wait for the market to come back. Because the other scenario which I showed you is we're within potentially a fourth wave. This is the larger degree. some sort of fourth wave as either a flat, where we're going to make some lower lows here, something like this, make our 3, 4, 5, and this third wave gets moved over here, some sort of A, B, C, 3, 4, 5, or this can even turn into some sort of triangle, something like this, and then we get our 3, 4, 5. But this is my primary, guys. I do think we're coming deeper. I think we're going to invalidate, personally, just because of how deep we've come, the fact we can't count this wave that nicely. This looks more like a third wave to the downside than a Y wave because of the steepness and the time passed. You can understand why, obviously. Again, the impulse is not invalidated, but I would say we're more likely to come to around $495 than a impulse to the upside right now. So be careful with your trading. Pretty much the only way I will get long is if we get this move down and we make a 5-wave impulse, break this B. That's where I would take my entry. I want the market to do what I want in the impulsive manner before I get in. Or if we just grind up from here, I'll probably take a fib pull of the extreme of this and put on our expanded flat zone. Say for whatever reason we start taking off here, and perhaps this is a 1-2 of one lesser degree as a 1-2, 1-2. I'd probably take an entry at this 1.618 extension. That's where we invalidate this entire move as a B wave past that level. And I will look for a stop either at this level, because we shouldn't come back to that once we get above that level, or if we have some sort of obviously pattern here, wherever the invalidation is on that scenario, which would most likely be a third wave. So it would be the overlap of wave 1 right here, right? Because if we get a third wave up here, we can't cross back over the top of wave 1, or just past the 50, the guideline for our fourth wave. We don't want to pass a 50, right? So that's how I'd play that, but you can see it would still be a pretty decent position size if we get that. So I'm prepared for every scenario, but right now I am heavily biased that we're going to make some new lows, but I'm obviously not throwing out the chance that we're making the impulse until it invalidates. All right, guys, that's it for ICP. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.